Welcome back on this Friday morning as the government shutdown stretches into day 24. The Senate rejected a pair of dueling bills that would have kept some federal workers paid yesterday, as federal SNAP benefits could be suspended beginning next week. Democrats are digging in on Obamacare subsidies. Republicans say they will not negotiate about those subsidies until government is reopened. No next vote has been scheduled so far. Joining me now is New York Congressman Mike Lawler. Congressman, good to see you. Thanks very much for joining us. What do you want to say here? The House is out of session this week, and we don't know where this is going.
Well, Maria, the House passed a clean continuing resolution over 1 month ago. It is insane that Senate Democrats have stopped the government from staying open and funded, now going on over 3 weeks, just to appease their far-left radical base. The fact that they voted down yesterday a bill that would ensure that our troops are paid and other government employees are paid is insane. But this is what they're doing. They're playing partisan politics, all in the name of trying to stand up to Donald Trump and appease their base. And all they're doing is hurting the American people. It is fundamentally wrong. Next week, it's projected that benefits, as you mentioned, for SNAP and WIC are going to run out. This is going to impact some of the most vulnerable Americans. And for what? What is it that Democrats think they're going to get out of this? The fact is, I and a number of my colleagues have already signed on to legislation to extend the Affordable Care Act subsidies by a year, which would give us enough time to actually deal with the fundamental issue, which is that under Obamacare, healthcare premiums have skyrocketed over the last 15 years, and it has failed to do the very thing it says it was intended to do, which is reduce healthcare costs in America. There is a lot of work ahead. But shutting down the government does not solve the problem. And in fact, it compounds the issue and creates bigger problems for people who need these services.
Well, I mean, look, we are expecting President Trump to leave for Asia tonight. He's going to Malaysia, Japan, then he's going to go to South Korea. He's going to meet with Xi Jinping. I have a hard time believing that anything changes with President Trump not here. So, I mean, we're talking about this shutdown likely going into November, if this is not settled before the president leaves for his Asia trip. Am I right?
Sadly, that's what it seems Democrats are intent on doing.
Yeah.
Look, Maria, they voted 13 times under Joe Biden to keep the government open and funded, passing clean CR after clean CR. I voted for 8 of them when Joe Biden was president. I have voted for every single one when Donald Trump was president. The hypocrisy of Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries cannot be overstated. They have created an unnecessary crisis for no reason. For no reason whatsoever. There is not a legitimate governmental reason to have shut down the government and put all of the American people in harm's way.
Well, they want chaos. I mean, they want chaos. They don't want, I mean, it doesn't appear that they want President Trump to do well. I mean, he's doing very well. They're probably mad about it.
Oh,
that's just my commentary.
By the way, Maria, this shutdown, as the Treasury Secretary pointed out, costs us roughly $15 billion a day in GDP growth. So they're not only creating a short-term problem in terms of impacting Americans who rely on these critical services or our military who rely on their pay or air traffic controllers. They're actually creating a longer-term problem for Q4 growth, all to do what? That's the fundamental question here. To do what?
Yeah,
and they are accomplishing absolutely nothing here but sowing chaos and dysfunction.
Well, not to mention it's putting all of you behind the 8 ball when you got to get these appropriations bills done. And I don't know why you would do a clean CR now that expires November 21st, by the way. Right? I mean, that's in a couple of weeks. You're going to have to do something longer than that. Otherwise, you're going to be in this position again on November 21st.
Well, unfortunately, that's the challenge here. I mean, they've dragged their feet so long that at some point we're going to have to obviously extend this even further because they refuse to actually do their jobs. And by the way, not only are they forcing our military and others not to get paid, they're still collecting their paychecks. I have foregone mine during this shutdown, as I know many of my colleagues have. Chuck Schumer hasn't. Chuck Schumer's still happy as a pig collecting his paycheck, and it's just disgusting.
Let me just, I'll keep watching that, certainly, but I got to move on to the New York election. I mean, we've got 11 days left until New York City chooses its next mayor. Incumbent Mayor Eric Adams has endorsed Andrew Cuomo. You saw that last night. He slammed Zohran Mamdani as a socialist and a communist, says we've got to get together, we're family. Mamdani's still polling as the frontrunner here, ahead of Cuomo and ahead of Republican candidate Curtis Sliwa. Early voting is kicking off tomorrow. Congressman, you've endorsed Curtis Sliwa. Can he win this?
Look, obviously, in a three-way race, it is very difficult. Zohran is polling, right around 50%, and, two opposing candidates create a challenge. Neither Andrew Cuomo nor Curtis Sliwa seem interested in getting out of the race for the other one. They both believe they have the better chance. And so, we are on the verge of Zohran Mamdani, an avowed socialist engaged in Marxist theory who wants to defund the police, shut down prisons, legalize prostitution, raise taxes by $9 billion on New York. He wants to freeze the rent. He wants free busing, government-run grocery stores. This is who is on the verge of leading the financial capital of the world. And it is just disgraceful. When you listen to, and by the way, Maria, his comments over the last few weeks, when it comes to Israel, when it comes to Hamas, the fact that he said Bibi Netanyahu should be arrested if he comes to New York, but had no opinion on whether Hamas should lay down its arms. Meanwhile, he was raising money 2 weeks ago for UNRWA. UNRWA has been defunded by Congress because of its role on October 7th and the death of Americans, okay, not just Israelis, but Americans and New Yorkers that occurred on October 7th. And he's raising money for an organization that was housing Hamas, that had members of its organization working with Hamas on October 7th. It's disqualifying, period. Completely disqualifying. And yet he's on the verge of becoming mayor. And honestly, neither Curtis nor Andrew are putting the city first. Their egos have allowed them to be completely blinded by what we're facing. And this is where we are. It's unfortunate. Really
so you're even complaining about Curtis's ego. Do you want Curtis to step aside, and will you get behind Andrew Cuomo then?
They both have to look in the mirror. And if neither one of them, has a pathway, they gotta make a choice. Yeah. If Andrew somehow is in a better position, based on polling, Curtis has to look at that. But as it stands, neither one of them seem intent on doing it. So here we are. We're less than 2 weeks out. Early voting starts tomorrow. Right. And Zohran Mamdani looks on the verge of becoming mayor.
By the way, I don't think your colleagues care. I think they're willing to sacrifice New York because it makes the Republicans look better come 2026. Am I right?
Look, Zohran Mamdani will become the face of the Democratic Party. It's part of the reason why Hakeem Jeffries keeps tripping all over himself, trying to figure out a way not to endorse him, even though he knows he's kind of betwixt in between. Because they know if he is the face of the Democratic Party, it is a disaster for Democrats all across the rest of the country, including, by the way, in New York, in the suburbs where I represent, in the Hudson Valley and Long Island. These congressional seats are going to decide who controls Congress, and Zohran Mamdani is going to be the face of the Democratic Party.
All right, Congressman, good to see you. We'll be watching all of that. Mike Lawler.